It's the Iconians!
Rick here, and I have never been so happy to be wrong. Last part I speculated that the narrative of Picard was heading into cliched organics versus machines territory, but that assumption, and one of my chief concerns, has been usurped by this episode. So let's review the latest from Star Trek Picard, Broken Pieces. There will be spoilers ahead by the by, so let's get started. I feel like the show has found itself at last. It's striking this balance between the grittier tone that the new iterations are so fond of and the more hopeful themes of its lineage. This of course seems to come from the revisiting of the last generation in the prior episode, and now we have a Picard who genuinely seems to believe once again in the higher moral purpose and optimistic view. From the La Serena side of things, there's not much to detract from the characters and their actions. All the action was left to the Borg front. I also mentioned that I'd need to see how Seven ended up on the cube, made her way past the Tau Shiar and reached Elnor. We didn't get any explanation. What we did get was an awesome fight scene, but I was expecting more than one Fenris Ranger to show up, unless they really aren't as big a group as they were in their prime. So let's start with the Borg cube. Artifact, whatever. Hugh's death, last part, has the potential to martyr the character and give 7 of 9 new purpose if she were to effectively replace him as caretaker of the XBs, simultaneously redeeming her darker course and turning Hugh's death into a sacrifice. I think that is what is intended, but so far it's not come to fruition. Instead, her actions, creating a localised collective, are immediately foiled by the Tau Shiar. Although it would have been so awesome to watch her guide a legion of drones, I'm sort of glad that it never happened. It would feel wrong for Seven. She herself was not sure that she'd want to relinquish the collective if she re-established it in any form. She wasn't sure her individuality would be preserved. I feel that Seven was way closer to her younger self here, being far more abrupt in a pinch. Then again, all these drones died anyway at the hands of the Romulans. So was it the right choice? Elnor sure seems to think so. He knows how to fight, but in almost every other aspect, he lacks worldly experience. You can release them after we've won. To me, that's still not good enough. But there's no time to have a crisis of ethics, and the drones were doomed from the start. Kudos to the hesitation that was written into the script here, even being used for good. She was still unwilling to direct the drones into servitude, and this point was not shied away from. In the end, the collective that was created seemed to be one of the XB's consciousness, but it was still rather chilling to see them acting as Borg once again, with the collective voice and the shift from white lights to green. Ultimately, this Borg cooperative chooses to release Arnica, saying she still has work to do, but I'm more interested in this side of things than I have been so far. As for the La Serena front, we can begin with Jurati. Picard seems determined to believe the best of her right up until she awakens. Even with Raffi and the E08 presenting pretty damning evidence, Picard maintains her innocence until she confesses, and I think it's a little gullible of him, but I'd rather that than have him agree outright. His disappointment speaks volumes, and we continue to see that Agnes, although a traitor, is not protesting her innocence, but willing to face imprisonment. This keeps her as redeemable in my eyes. She's still a psychological mess though. Picard describing Data to Soji was a lovely scene, laced with nostalgia through Picard and our memories. Not much else to say, except it was very poignant and bittersweet, and very well written compared to some of the other dialogue in this series. Equally beautifully acted was Picard's reminiscing to Rios, and his view of the Federation's direction. Picard has always held himself and others to a high standard, so Starfleet falling short of this too was a bitter disappointment to the man. Of course, it's easier to give in to fear when someone is stoking those emotions. I just about buy that these characters are forming a ragtag crew, especially with Rios at the centre, even more so than Picard. If it hadn't been for the earlier scenes of comfort between the cast throughout the show, I wouldn't be buying that any of them actually care for one another, but this episode solidified that bond between them for me. And just in time too. Raffi gets to repay Rios' coffee care, but only after she dives into the puzzle of trying to figure out Rios' psyche in hilarious interactions with the holocrew. We learn that the last Serena came with a 5 hologram package and that Rios' mind was used as the template for the holograms, one of many options for a first time installation. He then deleted some of their memories, ones he'd rather forget too. It sure is mighty convenient that Rios' backstory also ties into the synths, but hey, narrative needed, and at least they're making it relevant to him. During his tenure aboard the USS Ibn Majid, NCC 76710, we hear that his captain, Alonso Vandermeer, a man he idolised, was forced to kill 2 synths on orders from Starfleet Security Commodore O. Vandermeer could not live with the guilt and offed himself, which messed Rios up. Rios then covered all of this up, fearful of repercussions, and the whole incident was classified. A recurring trait of Rios has been that his loner persona is a facade, one he perhaps wishes were more real, but as Picard notes on his initial meeting, Rios still abides by the drilled-in Starfleet lifestyle, and he has great affection for Arafi and gets easily attached to Jurati. I don't recognise this ship silhouette, but I think it would be a new class, and I want to see it. Here's one similar from those we left behind, and a Sovereign-inspired interpretation too. Also, the 2 synths that Rios met, one was Jana, an Asher-style synth, but the other was a man. Maybe a Maddox replica, or, dare I hope, a Data? Admiral Clancy gets to swear at Picard again, so that must have made her day. But thankfully she's aware that she made a faux pas by denying him originally. An understandable choice, but to blow him off so completely? Tut, now you gotta help. However, the call took place before he learned it was Commodore O behind everything, so Starfleet may not know about the traitor in its midst. As for the opening, first question, why 4 mothers? All the Zatvash initiates were female, so is there a law reason for this? Are they perhaps splintered from the Kuat Milat? So we learn these witches found a system that houses 8 suns. This is based on the real-life New Scorpii system, which is suspected to have at least 7 suns, and some really funky orbital mechanics. Seriously, check it out. What's going on here? Astronomers, what is this shit? Explain this nonsense! Real-life stuff is freaky. Back to the fictional. In Trek, the system is alluded to in Romulan star atlases, long since considered apocryphal, but it's quickly decided to be of non-natural origin. At the centre of this orrery lies a single planet, Aya, on which contains a 200,000-year-old warning, an admonition. Whoever placed that message there wanted it to be discovered and listened to. Shame that how they've stored it seems to drive people mad, which in turn broke the collective of the artefact when it assimilated Ramda's ship. Nerissa says it was the force of Ramda's despair, but that's dumb, because I imagine despair is a pretty common emotion during assimilation. Maybe there's a more technobabble reason going on. It did provide a vision of Data too among a series of images of destruction and life, so I'm getting it adds context to the visions. This ancient culture was wiped from existence either by their own creations, but it's implied that they drew the attention of some greater malevolence. Whatever it was, passing a certain technological zenith with artificial life caused their extinction, and it's this marker by which the Zatvash charted their course. Commodore O infiltrated Starfleet upon learning of Soong's work, and has been there ever since, until she could influence policy. It's speculated by Picard and crew that O is the one responsible for the reprogramming of the synths on Mars, and she totally is, but they're going to need proof. I can't wait to get to work on theories and ideas about this ancient species. So why wait? What do we know about the 200 to 300,000 years ago, and in particular what stellar powers exist that can manipulate an entire star, nay, 8 stars, to create a landmark in the galaxy to locate their message? Well, the first answer is probably the most obvious. 200,000 years ago, the Iconians vanished. Called the Demons of Air and Darkness, they were a super-advanced technological species who specialised in the use of gateways. I'll link relevant vids, to travel across vast distances. It's unknown what exactly transpired to remove them from the galactic scene, but their homeworld shows evidence of massive orbital bombardment. Picard himself has visited the planet and even used some of the Iconian tech in the TNG episode Contagion, where another captain and colleague of Picard's, Captain Donald Varley, had located their lost homeworld of Iconia. Where was Iconia? Coordinates 227 Mark 359, Beta Quadrant, along the neutral zone, the Federation and Romulan border. This confirms that the ancient species had a presence in Romulan space, and their structures and tech have survived the 200 millennia in working condition. Of course, to the Iconians, the galaxy and perhaps the universe as a whole was accessible to them, and even the Dominion have located such gateways. Of course, there is too the creators of the Dyson Spheres, vast feats of stellar engineering which eclipse anything Starfleet can do. So maybe the species that constructed them was also capable of manipulating stars and creating the Octonary. For more information on the Iconians, we'd have to turn to memory beta sources. Picard reasons that the species were of explorers based on their gateways, but other interpretations aren't as kind, namely Star Trek Online, which Picard has already borrowed heavily from to construct its universe. Here, the Iconians are depicted as far less benevolent of an empire. Although they would not consider themselves evil, they did expand through subjugation and were unrivalled in their time, until those oppressed turned on them, forcing them to retreat into another realm. But what gets even more interesting is that the Iconians themselves were the first sentient race created by the progenitors, and these were people responsible for seeding the humanoid form throughout the galaxy in order to try to build a common thread and understanding between the races of the future. That didn't work out, but the themes of the creations overthrowing the creators was prevalent here too. Again, this I reiterate, none of this is canonical outside of Star Trek Online, but it makes for some interesting theory craft, and Picard could take the ideas and reshape it into something similar? Or perhaps the implied force that wiped out the Iconians also wiped out this other race that created ancient synthetic life. Especially if the Trek universe as a whole is looking to build towards something that could span several series, but all unite in some way, this has potential. Apart from Iconia being wiped out, what else was going on in the galaxy's ancient past? Well, the Borg may have begun their origins from this time, but considering their level of technology that the Borg have, while impressive, it's hardly sun-shifting. I doubt they're the creations that the admonition mentions, unless they lost it all and seek to rebuild. I don't think this is as compelling as the whole Iconian angle, but basically, what threat was great enough that it could wipe out a culture with the ability to move stars? And the Iconians vanishing around the same time and Iconia being in roughly the same region of space is a heck of a coincidence. So, that's my review and examination of what was uncovered in Broken Pieces. Thank you for listening, and I'm looking forwards to the theories and ideas from you guys. There's been this lingering doubt in the back of my mind about where Picard as a series is headed, but this episode did a lot to relieve that. What about you? Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.